One of the most disturbing problems in our world today is human and particularly the trafficking of children. Now, the first step in eradicating this crime is awareness. Go see Sound of Freedom.
It's asking them to do something, and you don't find out anything from it. You find out nothing from it. This is the main reason why I really hate it. You can get them in there and somebody might do just a slap-up job for that day, but that's what they've aimed at, that day. You have to be able to figure out whether they're going to be any good for 3 months while you're working with them.
One of the most disturbing problems in our world today is human and particularly the children. Now the first step in eradicating this crime is awareness, __, Sound of Freedom, applause. It's asking them to do something and you don't find out anything from it, you find out nothing from it. This is the main reason why I really hate it. You can get them in there and somebody might do just a slap-up job for that day, but that's what they've aimed at that day. You have to be able to figure out whether they're going to be any good for 3 months while you're working with them. So Mel Gibson just came forward with some shocking truths about Diddy, making it that much harder for to escape his fate. Mel's not exactly a straight arrow, he's got demons of his own. However, one thing he has been committed to from day one is exposing the dark side of the industry. The actor has raised his voice about trafficking and about monsters like Diddy lurking in the dark, but telling the truth is never easy, and Mel ended up paying the ultimate price with his career. The actor was blacklisted from the industry, but now everything he said is being proven true, so it seems like the fight was worth it. Just what did he say, and did he really expose Diddy's secret footage? Let's find out. He moved sideways and he just sat down on the chair next to me, and it kind of frightened me. And he's a very smart guy. So Mel's kind of always been vocal about the dark side of the industry, and he really ended up on everyone's radar after he went out of his way to promote the film Sound of Freedom back in 2023. The movie focuses on the true story of a former government agent turned vigilante who embarks on a dangerous mission to rescue hundreds of children from traffickers. And while a lot of folks felt that the film raised an important issue, Jim Cavell, who played the lead actor, highlighted how this wasn't just a global problem. Hollywood was guilty of exploiting minions as well. In fact, he said that the problem didn't end with Epstein Island. I can say one thing: I showed it in a Vegas, and there was 5 screenings, about 1,500 people that saw it during the 5 screenings. Each screening there was a talk going on, and I was like watching the audience going, what? Second time it happened again, third time talking in this one particular spot, and I'm thinking, what, did we do something wrong or something? But so then one more time it happened at the end. I was asking about the movie and I asked him about that one particular part where everybody's talking and they all cried out Epstein Island. And then, oh okay, now I understand what we're up against. Wow, Hin Island isn't the only island out there, and Tim Ballard takes down one of the films. Speaking of Jim, he actually played the role of Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, and he's given multiple interviews in which he talks about a shadowy international group of top Democratic politicians and famous liberal elites kidnapping children. Some of his comments are distasteful, but we have a republic right now, and there's a chance we could lose it right now. We don't have a south border anymore. Our children right now are being just absolutely screwed over left and right, and we've got LGBTQ+++ children making abortion laws where you cannot have a baby in California 27 days after it's born. Insanity, and making easier. And I'm looking at the Christians. If Christians would just unite, what we could do, but it can't happen if we don't have Christ questions that will answer that question from God. Will you do something when God tells you what to do? You can't hesitate. That's what faith is. However, fans were really surprised when Mel Gibson joined the conversation as well. He urged fans to watch the movie so they could learn about a deep-rooted problem. Sound of Freedom has a message filled with hope and inspiration. The film sparks conversations and encourages people to help end in their own community. It felt like Mel wanted to expose the dark side of the industry, and guess who didn't want that happening? Did he? Of course. The former music mogul has been charged with trafficking, and so back then, if anyone wanted Mel to stop Shining a light on the movie, it would have been Diddy, but see, the problem with Mel was that he was dead set on exposing the dark side of the industry. He also made it a point to help Britney Spears, who was put in a conservatorship by Lou Taylor, aka one of Diddy's co-conspirators. According to one of Britney's close friends, was one of the only people who reached out to help Britney when she was at her lowest point, and she believes that demonstrates what a loving and wonderful man he is. She wants people to give him a second chance, just like he gave her one when everyone else turned away. And get this, apparently after Britney had her public breakdown in May 2008, she felt comfortable with Mel. The two were spotted walking along the Baragona beach in Estanis of Guanacaste. Now some fans think that the real reason Mel went out of his way to help Britney was because he was aware of the evils of the industry, including the skeletons in Diddy's closet, and that's exactly why Diddy tried to silence him. See, the movie is focused on how minions are kidnapped and sold. There was a lot of misinformation, online reports about the movie being disappointing and inappropriate, but according to people who actually watched the movie, the whole thing was a ruse approved by the higher-ups in the industry who didn't want people to pay attention to the subject. One person commented, "So I'm one of the people who have been waiting the 5 years to watch the movie. I first heard of it years ago and been waiting." So yes, it's true that many studios refused to take the movie. It's true that Hollywood gave them a hard time to get this out here. This was something mentioned years ago. It's not being said now for publicity effect. Too, there's absolutely nothing graphic shown in the movie but a picture of a bloody man in a Polaroid, and it's a quick glance. The producers did a great job of making sure there were no violent scenes and sexual scenes, leaving the rest to your imagination. So for the people crying in hear about that, stop the lies or go see the movie yourself. At the end of the day, whether the actors or the people behind the movie have done or said anything you don't agree with, it shouldn't stop you from going to see the movie and shining a light on a very real problem. Meanwhile, slightly offensive podcast host Elijah Scher also agreed with the message behind the film. He made a tweet exposing the ties between the movie and the reality of the industry, while highlighting Mel's efforts to get people to watch the movie. He wrote, "Shocking, Mel Gibson, Sound of Freedom is the real deal. Warned about the evils of Hollywood in 1998, predicted how they turn on him. Alludes to actors being actual demons. He knows something very dark and wants to expose it." The seriousness in his voice is chilling. However, we want to make it clear that Mel had nothing to do with producing the film. He has no credits. All he did was make a video trying to get people to watch the movie. As for the 1998 interview that Elijah was referring to, well, that's a whole different story. Mel sat down with writer and composer Mike Figgis for an interview to talk about the dark truths of the industry, and man, did he have a lot to say. Well, you choose the ones who you want to be with. For a start, I never make them red or anything. I doubt that you do either. I don't like it. I don't understand that. I get embarrassed. And when they cry in a reading, I get like, oh God, yeah, you want to go and you want to leave because you feel you shouldn't be there. Well, it seems like you're doing something terribly wrong. You feel like some kind of you feel as if you're committing a crime. Yeah, and it's kind of slimy. It's kind of prostitution, sure, but that I think is even beyond. It's just kind of watching someone go through the act of prostituting themselves. He particularly went on a long rant about how Hollywood is not all that glamorous, and that the higher-ups actually have this twisted view of women. There's something that very almost unbearable about it. I find it. All the actresses I've spoken to all about prompting come up with the same thing of how detestable is the casting process. Not the old casting couch thing, just the thing of not having someone good to read with, and being expected to come in and be moat and look sexy, and the whole thing in front of a bunch of strangers. It's not fair. It's perverse. Well, it's not fair on them either. No, it's asking them to do something and you don't find out anything from it. You find out nothing from it. This is main reason why I really hate it. You can get them in there and somebody might do just a slap-up job for that day, but that's what they've aimed at that day. You have to be able to figure out whether they're going to be any good for 3 months while you're working with them. And the best way to do that is to get them in the room, sit them down, and it may be uncomfortable as it always is. Get to know someone to begin with and they think they're going to have to read, so you tell them, well, to begin with I don't want you to read anything, and they sort of relax a little and you say, I'm not making anybody read, so they don't feel like they're being outcast. And to prove his story, he also brought up a scary story about Christopher Walken. Apparently during one conversation, the dude gave Mel the creeps, and that's when Mel Decided that he wasn't going to work with them. I just started talking about the Middle Ages, and he began to talk tortures, and we swapped tortures cause I'd read this book on torture and I tried to recall some of the most heinous things I'd ever read in this book, and he was like, oh, and he'd try and